Alrighty, ladies and gentlemen, we are back at it again with another tier list. And this is going to be a tier list that many will find very, very, very helpful as we get into Wuthering Waves' second anniversary, or of course, just for your personal knowledge as you think about pulling any rerun in the game. And that is going to be our signature weapon tier list. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're doing another one of those because a lot of signature weapons have been added to the game since our last tier list, which I think was in like version 2 point something. And of course, the meta has shifted, the meta has evolved, and probably the biggest addition of all that's really going to contribute to this discussion over here are the addition of some of the new standard weapons, which are very, very, very good, especially on some very, very strong characters. So with that out of the way, keep in mind that we're going to be going with some unique categorizations over here. The first, the red one being must pulls. You probably should have these on your account or they're entirely necessary for a character to function. Think about signature reliant DPSs. They'll be the ones that are up here. Great, but can use other SIGs. This is going to be a category that's attributed towards characters or weapons that can be replaced by using another character's weapon, and the performance is roughly at similar levels. But that baseline weapon has to be strong in the first place. Strong, but can use a standard weapon instead. And this category is going to be highly populated simply due to the addition of the new standard weapons, and we'll be making sure to take a look at those as well. And then the fourth category is going to be for only mains. Yes, it's a bit of a play on words for a website that I'm sure plenty of you are familiar with. Only mains. This category is going to be for weapons that really don't belong anywhere else, and you would really only think about pulling them just because you really like the character. Because this might be a character, or this might be a weapon where you can just use other SIGs, but it's not even that strong in the first place. You're going to see a lot of sub-DPS weapons in here, and for awful value, well, those are going to be weapons that are just awful value, and you should probably just avoid pulling them under any situation. Let's go ahead. Let's get ourselves started off. I think it's been a while since we've done, like, you know, beginning to end tier lists, right? Because we've always started from the later releases. Let's just go ahead and start from the beginning this time. And this one is going to be Jiyan's signature. Yes, the first 1.x unit. We're going to have Verdant Summit. And might as well just do a bit of a review on it real fast before we start categorizing it. And that's going to involve me, obviously, going to my Jiyan. So this weapon over here gives you a general damage bonus of 12%. And then it gives you a stacking heavy attack bonus after you use something like a liberation or you use something like an intro skill. And this is the reality over here. This weapon is pretty damn good. And the reason why it's pretty damn good is that it's obviously Jiyan's best in slot, but it also is a weapon that is widely usable on Augusta. And this can just straight up replace Augusta's signature. You don't even need Thunderflare Dominion. You can just use Verdant Summit instead, and you basically have almost equivalent levels of performance to her SIG. That's why it's going to go over here. Great, but can use other SIGs. Because this is a weapon, right, where, you know what? It kind of does approach near must-pull category. Because if you have it, you have the best in slot for Augusta, basically. But nobody really needs Jiyan in the present day. So we'll put it over here into the great but can use other SIGs category because this is the other SIG that people are using. However, I'm not going to go ahead and say that it's like a weapon that like Augusta needs. Jiyan kind of does need it, but Jiyan isn't necessarily a must-pull unit. So that's basically where we're going to be placing this one for now. It has grown tremendously in value, right? It has grown tremendously in value with the release of Augusta, but unfortunately, it won't go into must-pull. However, if Jiyan was a stronger character, and maybe there have been rumors floating around, people think that 1.x units are going to get buffed. If Jiyan does end up getting buffed or something like that, and then suddenly turns into a very, very, very meta-viable or meta-viable high meta-strength unit, then maybe we can see an increase in the future. But that's going to be where we place it for now, because it is a weapon that is usable on one of the strongest DPS units in the game, Augusta. Now, let's move on and talk about String Master. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, String Master will actually still be in the must-pull category. This weapon has basically been up here since the dawn of time when it comes to weapon tier lists, and the reasoning for that is very, very, very simple. I don't even know who my String Master is on at this point because there's so many characters that use it. I'm already giving you some of the reasoning, right? I'm already spoiling it a little bit. So basically, when it comes to String Master, this weapon has a lot of bonuses for it. 36% crit rate, making builds for your Rectifier users, your Rectifier sub DPSs, and even your Rectifier main DPSs, some of the easiest things to do in the fucking game. 36% crit rate is better than 72% critical damage. And the reasoning for that is simple. To do critical damage, you need to be able to crit in the first place. And so having a weapon that gives more crit rate, especially this fucking much, is just awesome. It's just amazing. And honestly, with just these stats alone, alongside its 12% attribute damage bonus, most people would say it's still a solid pick to have for your entire sub DPS roster. However, it does have the bonus of increasing attack up to 24% simply from dealing resonance skill damage. And ladies and gentlemen, almost every character in the game, at least every Rectifier user, can deal resonance skill damage and then apply at least some part of this buff. Other characters are going to be a lot better at it. Of course, Yinlin is going to be the best at it, and then she even gets like a 36% attack bonus while off field, but yeah, as we all know, Yinlin's a piece of shit. So unless she gets buffed as well, you know, this weapon is just better served on pretty much other characters. And this is the thing. You can use this on Encore, you can use this on DPS Phoebe, you can use this, of course, on Yinlin, you can use it on Cantarella, you can use it on Phrolova, you can use it on Zhezhi too. There are pretty much, I think, every single Rectifier user in the game that isn't a healer like Shorekeeper or Verita can use this weapon and use it well. Yeah, you can use it on Cantarella too. And probably you'll be able to use it on Denya. I will put money on this weapon being pretty good on Denya, who's going to be a fusion Rectifier. Because this is the thing. How can a weapon that's this general, with an effect bonus that's this easy to activate, with just like all of this stuff built in, how is it not going to be usable on pretty much every single character ever that at least deals a little bit of damage? Unless Denya's like some weird ER scaler, which she might be because of the, well, because of this standard Rectifier that's because this is the thing. Like, look at this Boson Astrolabe. This is the new standard Rectifier. What the fuck even is this? Like, what the hell are these stats? So, like, based off of this, I think Denya does have possibility to be an ER scaler. Maybe. I don't really know. I don't really, like, trust this thing because I think they just put this in to, like, fuck with players because it looks like it's useless. Maybe Denya will be an ER scaler. But beyond that, there's already too many users of String Master for it to be anything less than a must pull. Because what String Master does is that by pulling it, you can basically skip almost every other signature Rectifier in the game. And obviously, I think Kuro knows they fucked up with this thing. That's why they haven't released anything even close to its level of general power as of late. And the end result is that if you pull this, there's a reason why there's going to be a lot of other weapons that we put in the either only mains or awful value category. And it's because this thing exists in the game. Now, let's talk a little bit about our next signature, and that is going to be none other than Jinshi's. I'm going to be honest over here. Jinshi is not strong enough, and there aren't enough resonance skill broadblade damage dealers. You probably should just avoid pulling Jinshi, and you should just avoid pulling her signature in the present day of 2026. Because this ain't like no Jiyan signature, right? This is not like some situation where you get at least like some general use out of it on other members of the roster. Jinshi is a resonance skill broadblade damage dealer. There are no other resonance skill broadblade damage dealers. So even though this weapon is very similar to Jiyan's and it's like very cool, right? The design is nice and everything. It's just, there's no reason to really get it anymore unless you main Jinshi. That's pretty much it. There's no reason to get it anymore unless you main Jinshi, because if you're looking for a stat stick broadblade, ladies and gentlemen, you could just get the new standard one. And it's free. And it gives virtually the same stats. It just gives crit damage instead of crit rate, and it gives 12% attack instead of 12% attribute damage bonus. So it's kind of just like, if you're using Jinshi's weapon for a stat stick, there's no point because you could just get this thing as a standard weapon. And that's why a lot of weapons are going to be downgraded, ladies and gentlemen. It's because of this. It's unfortunate, but that's just the reality, and you're going to see a lot of weapons exist in a similar state to this. We got Changli's signature. And I'm going to be honest over here. I am going to be honest over here. Yep, the value of this thing is odd. It's really, really, really odd because I see it growing in the future, but I also feel the need to judge it based off of present value. EOG is kind of just too good. And let's just talk a little bit about what I mean by EOG over here. EOG is a free standard 5-star weapon that pretty much everybody on the roster can use. And that includes Changli, who obviously has her signature, but EOG just basically gives you ER, crit rate, and then a stacking attack bonus. And all you need to do is cast a resonant skill, and every unit in the game has a resonant skill, ladies and gentlemen. So it's kind of just like every character can at least activate part of its bonus. And while Changli does have a very strong sig, attack increase to 12%, and then she gets up to like fucking 56% resonant skill damage bonus, because it's 4% times 14. It's one of the highest damage bonuses in the game. There hasn't really been another resonant skill damage dealer in the game that uses a sword. And so the second that there's another resonant skill damage dealer in the game, this thing is probably going to jump up to this level because it's going to be the sig that you can use on other characters. But as of now, I think it really just has to be like an only Changli main thing. And unfortunately, Changli is not really that strong of a unit right now. She's only playable in kind of just like mono fusion, and like that's it. And if you're using her anywhere else, it's like it's not that good unless you're quick swapping like a demon, but that's like, who's doing that on Changli anymore? They've all decided to become Zani mains. So it's kind of just like, yeah, I see the potential for it. I see the vision. I see the vision for a Jinshi weapon too, but we're judging it based off the current state of the game, the units that are on the roster. And this is the thing, right? Maybe Hiyuki is going to be a resonant... No, she's not, because Carlotta's already a Glacial resonant skill damage dealer. Do you see what I mean? Right? Because Hiyuki can't be another Glacial resonant skill damage dealer because Carlotta's already one. So it's just going to go here. Hopefully it makes sense. Now we have Zhezhi's weapon. Dog shit. Complete trash. And it reserves the title as one of the only signature weapons I have not pulled in the game. And the reason for that is simple. It's because you could just use String Master instead, and it's just better. Let's go ahead and review what this piece of shit does. Increase attack by 12%, and while the user is on the field, using a resonant skill grants 12% basic attack damage bonus, stacking up to 3 times for 6 seconds. At 3 stacks or above, using an outro consumes all of them to give you a basic attack damage boost. This is one of the most Giga-specific weapons in the game because it requires you to A, deal off-field basic attack damage, and then B, cast multiple resonant skills to buff your basic attack damage. Cantarella is the only other character in the game that can even slightly use, or I guess Encore technically too, right? That can slightly use the initial bonus, but bro, it only gives 36%, which is just less than a bunch of other signatures. Because Cantarella does almost no coordinated attack damage at all. Zhezhi's kind of the only one that does it. And you would rather just use String Master because it would make your Zhezhi easier to build with crit. Zhezhi deals some resonant skill damage, at least like at the start of her rotation. You can get that going. But the thing is that Zhezhi doesn't deal enough damage at all. She's one of the lowest damage dealers in the game. And so even having or investing in damage buffs like this via her signature is one of the worst mistakes you can make on your account. Unless your Zhezhi is like S2, S3, or S4, it's like she doesn't even do enough damage for this to even be slightly useful. So it's like a signature that's Giga specific, but the character doesn't even do enough damage to make having this noticeable. I think the actual literal team difference in DPS between these two things, it's like 1 or 2%. It's literally like 1 or 2% team damage difference. And that shit is just mad pathetic. And you'd rather just use String Master instead. Or really, even a standard weapon instead of this thing because Zhezhi deals so little damage. And that's kind of just the unfortunate truth regarding the situation. Let's go ahead, let's move on. Let's talk about Zhang Liao's signature. It's good. And the main reason why I'm saying it's good is because of one very simple thing. Remember how we talked about how Jiyan's signature is good because it works on Jiyan and it also works on Augusta? Yeah, Zhang Liao's signature is good because it works on Zhang Liao and it also works on Iuno. Yes, Iuno and Augusta had the amazing bonus of being liberation damage dealers for Iuno or heavy attack damage dealers for Augusta. And guess what? Zhang Liao's signature is one of the easiest ones for Iuno to activate and use in the game. Because what does Iuno do? Resonance skill or liberation damage, and she also uses resonance skills during her liberation, and she can fully extend the effect to no problem at all. That's kind of just like it. And so Iuno's signature is one of the most unnecessary things to pull in the fucking game if you already have Zhang Liao's. And, well, when Iuno is a top-tier sub-DPS that can also be played as a main DPS, well, I'm just going to be honest, it's going to go into a similar spot to Jiyan's sig, because Jiyan's can be used on Augusta. So, yeah, that's basically going to be why we're placing it there. The same exact reasoning for Jiyan's signature. It can apply to Zhang Liao's as well. We're going to have Shorekeeper sig. Yeah, if you have this, my condolences, because I just don't think it's very good. And the reasoning for this is simple. Instead of pulling Shorekeeper's signature, you can just go ahead and opt for a 4-star weapon called Variation, build up refinements of it, and it can just outperform Shorekeeper's signature because it increases your rotation time, or decreases your rotation time so much. And while, yes, Shorekeeper's signature will allow her to have more HP, more ER, and, like, you know, have an easier build and stuff like that, it's kind of just, like, that's a lot of investment to make on, like, the pull side, just to have an easier time building and to slightly deal more damage. And the most important thing of all was when it comes to Stellar Symphony's buffs, bro, they're not even that good. This is like 1.5 attack rolls, bro. It's 14% attack. Like that is the team buff that you are getting from investing in a signature weapon. 1.5 attack rolls. Is that worth like 60 plus pulls? If it is, go for it. I guess you just have a bad way of valuing things. You probably go into, like, just never go to a flea market. If you think, oh yeah, no, that's what I'll say. If you think that this is high value, never go to a flea market ever. Don't try to, like, haggle with people. You will get fucking cooked. You are gonna get scammed like 13 times. You're probably the same person that, like, at Venice Beach or like any city, metropolitan city in America, you pay for the guy's mixtape. That is 1000% what you would do if you think that this is a good value signature. Nobody ever needs it. It's completely unnecessary. You can skip it, just use Variation or whatever concerto weapon instead, and just pretend that this thing doesn't exist. And you will probably be better for it. And if you're somebody that pulled it and you're trying to, like, sunk cost fallacy yourself out of this, just don't even start. You fucked up. Moving on. We got Camellya signature. Camellya currently is simply not strong enough to warrant pulling this at the moment. She's unfortunately just not. And the reasoning for this is simple. Camellya has gotten her 5-star sub DPS, and that was Roccia. Yes, this character got fucking boomed. This unit over here got boomed because her sub DPS is the biggest piece of dog shit in the game. And so Camellya's ceiling basically just got, like, lowered, like fucking chopped, because this character is so shit. And until we have a buffer on the same level of Iuno or Qiuyuan for basic attacks, you know, that just gives like 50% basic attack damage amp or something like that, and then Camellya can actually have a real fucking teammate, I think that we're going to have some big issues talking about, or really even trying to say that this is like a good weapon at all. I think that if you main Camellya, you really like her, you got sequence zones and stuff like that, go for it. But in the current state of the game, with the meta, how it's evolved, and how bad Roccia has aged, I don't think Camellya is really the issue. I just think the issue is the fact that Camellya does not have any real premium option to work well with. And that's the unfortunate reality of having Roccia as your main sub DPS. Moving on, we got Carlotta signature. And this is the first time we're going to have a user in this category. Strong, but can use the standard weapon. And the reason for this is very simple. Phasic Homogenizer is fucking broken. And Phasic Homogenizer is the new standard pistol. This thing just has a regular base attack, crit damage stat, and then at rank 1, its attack is boosted by 12%, and then it also gives you a 20% all attribute damage bonus for 14 seconds after tomb breaking, and everybody on the team can tomb break. So it's kind of just like, you never actually need Carlotta's signature. Carlotta's signature is slightly better than this, but there's no need at all to pull it if you plan on using Carlotta. However, this is also the thing that exists. You can R5 one of these weapons hypothetically if you want to. It's entirely possible. And at R5, this thing is definitely better than Carlotta Sig. But this is the thing, right? If you want to pull it, go for it. It'll be slightly better, but just know that you can use the standard weapon instead and still get very, very good results. Fair enough? Now we got Tragic Comedy. That's Rossia's Sig. Bro, this thing is so shit for her, it's unreal. Let me just explain to you why this weapon is so fucking bad. Okay, yeah, no, because I have it. So this weapon over here gives you crit rate, increases attack by 12%, and then gives her a 48% heavy attack damage bonus. That would potentially be okay if this character did damage. It's like similar to the Zhezhi situation of how the fuck can you justify pulling this signature for a character where like and getting all these heavy attack damage buffs when the character doesn't fucking do damage. She doesn't. Literally zero. This shit is pathetic. It's disgusting. And it doesn't make any sense at all to pull this if you're looking to pull for Roccia. Because this is the thing. Rossia's a dog shit unit anyways. So she's like one of the worst pulls in the game. And her weapon is also one of the worst pulls in the game because it doesn't even benefit her properly. Because Roccia is a unit where to maximize her buffs, you need 70% crit rate, which is really fucking hard to do when her side trees give her crit damage. And guess what in this game? Like, if you, for some godforsaken reason... Bro, is Pero wearing these? Oh my fucking god. Whatever, right? You can just put Pulsation Bracer on, and it gives the same fucking stats as her Sig. So, like, it's just easier and better if you, for some reason, have this shit unit to just get the new standard weapon and put it on her. Because, it gives the same exact crit rate. Because it's not like she's doing damage anyways, and you're only building her for her attack buff on her Liberation, which requires 70% crit. And that's really fucking hard to get. So, yeah, it's just... That would be the only reason to get her Sig. But then Zhang Liao's Sig does it. Luke's Sig does it. And then, of course, the new standard weapon does it. But it's just like, bro, there's like no reason at all to get this. Because she doesn't even deal damage in the fucking first place. So, yeah. I don't think anyone can disagree with this one. This thing is dog, poo-poo, shit water. Now we got Phoebe's weapon. This is, like, the most specific weapon in the game, because you basically are only using it under a certain number of circumstances. A, you're running Confession Mode Phoebe. Yeah, because main DPS Phoebe can just use String Master, or really, even like the fucking fish weapon. Wait, where's the fish weapon? Or just use the Ocean's Gift fish weapon, or String Master. And this thing is kind of only being purchased so that you can get its Spectral Frazzle damage amp when Phoebe's in sub-DPS mode, because she deals no fucking damage at all in Confession mode. So basically, this is only a weapon you consider pulling if you're really insistent on trying to make this unit work, because you've wasted your pulls pulling this unit and her signature in the first place, and you're just like, huh, instead of just abandoning this team, surely if I pull even more, then the team will be better. That's what only mains is basically consisting of at this point, because if you're still playing Zani and Phoebe in 2026, you basically made the admission that, like, yeah, you're fully committed. And unless you're gonna pull their Sig, pull Zani's Sig as well, and do all of this other shit, the team's like really fucking bad. And even when you have all of this, the team is really fucking bad, and it's required that you quick swap to even make it functionable in endgame content, which is truly, genuinely, right, an absolute joke once you think about it. This is like only if you're playing Confession Mode Phoebe for your Zani team. Otherwise, if you're playing main DPS Phoebe, you could just use String Master or any of the other weapons instead. That's just kind of the reality over here. And now we got Brant's signature. And this one is going to go into must pull from the definition of Brant is kind of fucking unplayable unless you pull it. Brant is basically unplayable unless you pull it. And so that's why it's going into the must pull category if you have Brant. Because otherwise, there's kind of not a reason to get Brant in the first place unless you're going to pull his weapon. Only mains. I already defined at the start that this category is going to go for weapons that actually have to be pulled with the character. And this is also the thing. Look at who's in only mains. Are you telling me Brant is worse than Jinshi? Are you telling me Brant is worse than Changli? Are you telling me Brant is worse than Camellya? He's actually a viable and strong unit. And it's not like it fits into any of these other categories. Yeah, it's not like it fits into any of these other categories. And so, guys, this is also the other thing. I'll just do a spoiler so that you guys stop being retarded. Card Sig is also going in here, so just get the fuck off my back for a second. Yes, Cartithia's signature is also going here. Yes, because I've already defined what it is, and for some reason, you guys are forgetting the definition. Okay? Like, are you guys done being retarded babies? Are you guys done being retarded babies? Can we move on? There is me putting the, was that enough? Was that enough? That's just basically like giving Ritalin to a child, bro, to make them behave. Brant's signature is essentially required for this unit to function. And that's why it's going into the must pull category, because if he doesn't have it, he's basically not a character. And so the idea over here is that this unit with his signature is incredibly, incredibly strong. And the reality is that when he does have it, he basically fills in the role of a sub DPS unit while also being a healer, while also being a damage dealer all at the same time. And that's something that he can do. And the thing is that he doesn't have any other weapon options that are even slightly viable on him, because when he does start using things like maybe like Red Spring or like EOG or anything like that, his use cases as a character basically just plummet off of a cliff. And so I'm not saying that Brant is a must pull over here, but the weapon is a must pull to make him an actual character. And that's why this category is going to be here, because if you, well, don't pull this for him, he's kind of just a piece of shit. And that's the reality. It's needed to make him function. Can you just maybe make a second category? Okay, you know what? We'll do that. We'll do that. Yeah, you know what? Sure, we'll do that. Chat is bitching like crazy. That's where we'll pull must pulls for units, and then the unit is also strong. No, this is what we'll do. We'll call it retard category. We even made it like pink as well, so you guys are super aware that you're being called out. We'll just go ahead and we'll put the next weapon in here then. So now you can see that your card signature is now near the bottom of the tier list. Are you happy now? So in the same vein, right, that Brant basically needs his signature to function as a character, that is the same exact situation for good old Cartithia. Right, this weapon, you will never use it on anybody else for the existence, like, of your fucking life. And even if it's extremely strong on Cartithia, right, this retarded chat has unfortunately forced me to place it here. And so even if you're saying, well, actually, Cart with her signature is very, very, very strong, well, it's still going in this category on the tier list because people don't know how to even slightly understand basic explanations. And, yeah, because Brant's signature was up here, they started fucking chimping out like crazy. Cartithia, with her signature, is incredibly, incredibly strong. However, if she doesn't have it, yeah, bro, she just doesn't function as a unit. That's kind of like one of the reasons why it's here. Of course, you can't really use it on anybody else, much like how you can't use Brant's signature on anybody else. I would have liked to place this thing higher to recognize Cartithia's strength with her sig, but we can't, otherwise my chat's gonna devolve into a 0 IQ playground. Cantarella sig. Yep, same fucking deal. The exact same argument that we used for Zhezhi, the exact same argument we'll use for Cantarella. Because Cantarella doesn't deal enough damage to warrant pulling this signature. And yes, I know, with her sig, it's like, whoa, we're gonna get 40% basic attack damage bonus and 12% resistance, havoc resistance ignore. Doesn't matter, because Cantarella just doesn't really fucking deal damage in the first place. It's the same conundrum. It's the same sort of reality. It's better to just get Stringmaster, use it instead, and then just kind of like move on from there. She can also use Cosmic Ripples too. There's kind of just not necessarily a big reason at all to even like focus on this thing, because you can kind of just, like I said before, use this instead, have an easier build, and then just move forward with that. Because it's not like Cantarella's in here carrying any of the teams she's on. Cantarella's also only playable in one team in the game. One fucking team in the game, and that's with Phrolova. So I guess the reality might be you're using like Phrolova on Stringmaster and you're wondering what to put on her. Just put Cosmic Ripples on her then and just like move the fuck on. But yeah, these two characters are basically tied to the hip. So it's like Cantarella's not really even that good in the first place. I don't know why you would necessarily get her sig. Now we got Zani's weapon. That one's definitely going into only mains. And the reason for that is simple. Zani is a shit character. If you don't have Phoebe, Zani doesn't function. If you don't have like a bunch of other things, it's like Zani doesn't function. And I'm gonna be real. This weapon's value is like just read it. Increase it's decent as a stat stick. You know what? I will give it this. I will give you this. It probably is in the front of only mains because its 8% defense ignore is probably the best general use case stat stick in the game because it gives 12% attack, 8% defense ignore, and then, you know, good crit and base damage. That's what it has. However, its other effect is amplifying spectral frazzle damage dealt by 50%. That is essentially right. That's what you need for Zani. And Zani without this does like no fucking damage. So it's almost entirely necessary for Zani to have this for her to function. You can sort of think about using Rossia's, but then Zani's just not really even a strong fucking character in the first place. And so I guess from that perspective, it's like, yeah, this weapon could be put into only mains because it's the best stat stick ever. And I'll put it at the top, but this is the thing, right? There's no value inherently in a stat stick like this when Pulsation Bracer is in the game, guys. Because that's a crit stat stick that you can just get for free. So, like, I'm not going to be putting that much value in 8% defense ignore. And every other stat being the same as Pulsation Bracer. Did we forget this shit is in the game? There's no reason at all to purchase this as a stat stick. This is just sunk cost fallacy from Zani owners trying to move this weapon up on the tier list because you know Zani is shit. Anyways, that's where it's going to go. Not really a good idea. Remember, you're not clearing with Zani unless you have her Sig, unless you have Phoebe and Phoebe Sig as well, and you're also quick swapping with the team. That's not happening. You simply don't clear floors 3 and 4 unless you do all of those things. Sigs on everybody, incredible echo builds on everybody, and then also quick swap on top of it. Now we got Ciaccona Sig. This one's going to go into strong, but you can just use the standard weapon. And this is the reality over here. Ciaccona's signature is not really about her personal damage. It's about her ability to buff her team by reducing an enemy's arrow resistance. And the reality is that this is kind of just for like min-maxing because you can just use static mist on Ciaccona instead and, you know, still get the job done in basically every Ciaccona team. You can even use phasic homogenizer as well if you want to like, if you're on the Carlotta team and you're trying to like just buff Ciaccona's personal damage because she can nuke for a lot. You can just do that instead of pulling this. And while yes, your cart team and all your arrow teams are going to be a lot stronger having this because arrow resistance minus 10% is a very strong buff. Well, it's not necessary to clear, and it's kind of just to squeeze that extra damage out of it. And it's good for sure. It's great, in fact, but you could just use the standard weapon instead and still get the job done. So that's why the weapon's going to go there. I think it's very fair to say. You get this for free. So like, yeah, yes, we're gonna put Blood Pack's Pledge in here. And we'll just mention that it is absurdly a good weapon. It's very strong. Like, I mean, it gives 26% arrow damage amp. What do you want me to say? Like, this is good in a Sigrika team. This is good in a cart team, obviously, and it's good even in like some weird mono arrow lineups you can do with like Iuno and stuff. Actually, you can't pull, so it can't be a must pull. Well, how about this? It's automatically on your account, so it is a must pull. Great. Do you want to go over semantics all day, chatter? We got Lupa Sig. That's also going to go into strong, but just can use the standard weapon. Because Lupa is not really a character, right, that's meant to deal a fuck ton of damage. And all Lupa's weapon is mainly used for that separates it from standard weapons is that it gives 24% fusion damage bonus to the entire team. That's good, but it's not enough to necessarily use it over like any of the other signature weapons in the game, unless you just really want to squeeze out that extra damage, right, that I was talking about before. You just want to squeeze out that extra damage, much like how Ciaccona's signature operates. And so, yes, this weapon will make all of your Lupa and Monofusion teams better and stronger, and without a doubt be a good purchase if that's what you're trying to min-max. But there's not really a reason to because Lupa's and her teams will just clear without it. Same exact conversation that we're having over here with the Ciaccona signature. Get it if you want to get a min-max performance. Otherwise, just don't worry about it. Now we got Lethian Elegy. This is going to go into the great, but can use other SIGs category. And the reason for this is simple. It is the best in slot on Phrolova, without a doubt. But ladies and gentlemen, much like how the conversation has been going when it comes to String Master, and it comes to like that overall level of performance, you can just use String Master instead of Lynae Elegy, and the DPS loss is almost minimal. It's almost not even recognizable, the difference in DPS that you're going to be having. Because Phrolova has this thing called Teammates. And while, yes, this is going to give her the highest overall damage that she has, I'm just going to be honest, guys. String Master can just get the job done as well. And there are some individuals out there that say, oh, yeah, this is actually a better stat stick than String Master. In some circumstances, sure. But are you ever really going to be in a situation where you're swapping around Lynae and Elegy and stuff like that when it has lower crit rate? This is simply easier to build around. Having 12% additional crit rate is easier to build around, especially on sub DPS characters that kind of aren't really dealing that much damage in the first place. I really do think a lot of people go into the mindset that Lynae and Elegy is like a better overall standard weapon, or like a standard stat stick. I don't really think so because of the whole crit rate component. Yes, I think having 12% more is more valuable to me than this 8% defense ignore when the character I'm using or is like fucking Zhezhi, who's not really dealing damage in the first place. This is why it's going to go into great, but can use other SIGs because String Master can just be used instead of this thing. Now, we got Augusta's weapon. What do you want me to say? Jiyan's weapon is there for a reason. And Augusta's weapon is naturally going to be in the same category because it's good. Heavy attack damage increased by 20%, and then you start ignoring up to like 36% of the target's defense. But honestly, 36% defense ignore is not that much. It seems like it's a lot, but in practice, just having Jiyan SIG that gives the 48% heavy attack, it's just kind of the same thing. And also, I don't like the stat blend on this thing. I kind of really don't like the stat blend. I don't like that it has 675 base attack, and I don't like that it has 12.1% crit rate. I'm going to be honest. It kind of feels like a little bit shit to build around. And while, yes, my Augusta has some monstrous stats, like 22, like almost 3k attack, you're supposed to run like a crit rate forecast on Augusta. You're supposed to run like a crit rate forecast on her, something like this instead, and kind of like go from there. However, I use like a crit damage one because I got like monstrous. I got like a 5 out of 5 on here, so I use that instead. I think that this weapon is definitely, if you have a choice and you're trying to gear your Augusta, and you have a choice between Jiyan's SIG or this one, you should probably go for Jiyan's because it's usable on more characters. However, I'm not going to deny that this is a powerful weapon for Augusta. So it's kind of like, I mean, it is her best in slash. She gets the best results with it, and Augusta is also a strong character. However, it's not really usable on other characters because that defense ignore effect doesn't really do anything. But I mean, it is Augusta's best in slide. Augusta is a good unit. So yeah, and it's not like she can just use a standard weapon. She needs to use somebody else's signature to get like good levels of performance. Otherwise, if there was a good heavy attack general standard weapon that buffed it, then it would go here. But like there's not, so it's going here because some people are saying only mains. Are you saying Augusta's a shit character? Because then you would have an argument for only mains. Bro, I don't even, like, what do people even say? Only mains is the category for weapons that you would only pull if you really like a character, because the character's not really that strong. Which is why Zani, Jinshi, Changli, Camellya, and Phoebe weapons are here. So now that we clarified that, this category over here is great, but can use other signatures. And Augusta's signature is great on her, but she can use other sigs. And it's not like there's a standard weapon that does anything close to what Augusta's signature does. Nah, there's too many dumb people. You just like, just pull every sig. Why are you even looking at a tier list then? If your argument is pull every sig. Iuno's weapon is going to go into a similar category to Augusta's for the same exact reasoning that Augusta's signature is there. It's great on Iuno, but you can just use Zhang Liao's instead. However, I will say that at this point for Iuno, it's probably going to have to be downgraded a little bit into this category because Iuno actually can, especially considering her role, she kind of can just use Pulsation Bracer. And I guess the take is that she really would be missing out on a lot of the effects. I guess Pulsation Bracer is like a big part of her contribution to her teams is actually her damage because she runs a DPS set. She runs a DPS set 100%. So I think we will go back to this category for her. Yeah, no, a big part of what she contributes to teams is her damage because she has almost no other offensive buffs in her kit. She only does damage and then gives amp on her outro. And if she doesn't deal a lot of damage, then her contribution to teams is pretty bad. So yeah, no, I was thinking about it for a second, but we should keep it up here. Now we got Galbrena's. Same argument for Carlotta. Because Galbrena over here, right? Lux and Umbra. Give some very unique stats. Heavy attack amplification and echo skill damage amplification. And while they're both active, ignore 8% of the target's defense. What you'll notice from reading this weapon is that it gives no fucking damage bonuses other than amplification and defense ignore. And the end result is that it's actually very comparable on paper to, well, I mean, it's the one that we were looking at before, Phasic Homogenizer. And again, at R5, I'm pretty sure it's better than the R1 of her actual Sig. So it's kind of just like you could just use Phasic Homogenizer on Galbrena all in a day and then just move forward from there. Because Phasic Homogenizer giving a 20% all attribute damage bonus is very good for Galbrena because echo skills and heavy attacks would both fall under that. So it's a solid pick for her. And the end result is that her signature inherently is just a lot less valuable because you can just use the standard one. Now we got Qiuyuan's, and this is the unfortunate reality. It's also in strong, but can just use the standard weapon, because this is the unfortunate part about Qiuyuan. Qiuyuan doesn't really deal that much damage as a character. And so the main use case of this weapon, despite the fact it gives 60% heavy attack damage bonus, which is a lot, is that it gives 20% echo skill damage bonus to the team. And so if you don't really need that extra bit of min-maxing with the 20% echo skill damage bonus, you could just use EOG instead on him. Because he does have a crit rate requirement in his kit. He needs like 65%, which is honestly very, very easy to get, but you don't have his crit damage bonus unless you're at 65%. So you do want a crit rate weapon on him. Emerald Sentence naturally does that, but it's not like it's out here doing a whole lot because yes, this damage bonus is big, 30% times 2 for 60%, but he doesn't really do that much damage as a sub DPS. If you're trying to play this guy main DPS, yes, this is mandatory. You're not really working with that much in the first place, but I can get it done. And the main bonus, again, the draw is the 20% echo skill damage. That's not particularly that much, so yeah, you can just use EOG instead in pretty much all circumstances and have a fine-ass time with it. Kumo Kiri. This is going into must pull for the specified unit, and the reason for this is incredibly simple. Chisa's only viable team right now is the Arrow Erosion team. And if you don't have Chisa's signature, she's worse than Arrow Rover. So unless you pull this weapon too, she's worse than the free unit on the only team she's viable in. It's only with these two, and without her Sig and a really good build, she's worse than Arrow Rover. I would like put it into here if I could, but she is technically better than Arrow Rover with it, but like, I wish I could put it like all the way down here. Honestly, it might be more fair to put it here because like, she's just kind of a dog shit unit right now. And it's kind of, this is kind of like the matter of this. Chisa is such a bad character at the moment that I think it's better to just say it's not a good weapon because she's a terrible character. That is one of the worst pulls in the history of the game. And because she's such a bad pull, her Giga-specific weapon is also going to be a bad pull too. Yeah, you know what? That's where we'll just put it for now. We'll put it at awful value right now because Chisa's an awful character. Expect the value of this weapon to grow once Chisa stops being so shit. If you're going to say that it belongs in here when her with her Sig is like a 5% improvement over Arrow Rover, nah, it's going into awful value because she's an awful character. Brant and Carlotta are both like 30 times better than her. So yeah, no, they can go in this category. No, they're both so much better than her, it's crazy. She hopefully is going to get a lot better in 3.3. And with that, her weapon is going to grow a lot in value as time goes on. I can see this weapon going into here because it is a team buffing weapon, but Chisa has no fucking teams in the game. So that's why it's going at awful value for now. Now that I think about it. Expect to see it here in a future version. Now we got Lynae's weapon. I'm gonna be honest. It could go here, but Lynae's weapon is so unnecessary that low-key it could go into awful value. Because this is my personal take. Unless Lynae starts supporting a like defense scaling or HP scaling toon character, you can just use Static Mist. Because this weapon, right, gives her a 36% basic attack damage bonus, which is like, oh, that's cool. She doesn't do any fucking damage. And the main sort of bonus over here is getting a 24% all attribute damage bonus to the entire team, which is nice. But that's like, she already gives that in her kit just from using her liberation. And the end result is that, like, when you compare it to a Static Mist, which gives 15% attack at R3, and you should have this R5 if we're going to be entirely honest, if you're like day one, you can just use this thing instead, and it also makes her easier to build because it gives her ER. So it's like, this thing just gives her a bunch of damage bonus on a kit that does no fucking damage at all, and the end result is like, this makes her easier to build, and the performance is almost like virtually identical, bro. It's almost unnoticeable what the damage actually is. And my personal take is that it's a lot better to just skip this thing, save the pulls, and like pull other teammates instead. And just go with EOG and then sort of like move forward from there. No, she fucking doesn't. Are you on crack cocaine? If you're out here saying Lynae does good damage, you're probably thinking about the Toon Rupture damage. And guess what her Toon Rupture damage doesn't scale with? Any of her fucking stats, bro. It just, her Toon Rupture damage just like happens. Her Toon Rupture damage doesn't scale with her fucking shit. And so most of her actual damage comes from Toon Rupture on those teams. And that's the case. Internet problems, there was a literal earthquake in California, guys. Are you all right? Guys, is that an appropriate question to ask to somebody that's literally in front of you streaming normally? Did you get harmed in it? I'm sorry. It's just, dude, can we like at least like think half a second before we type some of the messages that we're typing in chat? Going back to it, where the fuck even was I? Yeah, Lynae's signature, in my opinion, it's really not something you should be investing in. You can definitely get it to get like that extra edge on some teams. It could theoretically belong here, but with Static Mist being such a good option for her that just kind of does everything that this weapon would do anyways, I'm more inclined to put it down here because it is a gigantic bait and like the bonuses that you get from it are kind of like aren't worth the payoff. Mornye's signature. Bro, it's the same fucking thing as Storekeepers. Just use an R5 Discord instead. Because this is essentially just increase defense, have a ton of ER, and restore Concerto energy after using your liberation. This effect can be triggered one time every 20 seconds, and when you heal, increase the crit damage by 20%. 20% crit damage is 1.5 crit damage substats, or really 1 crit damage substat if you roll high enough. Arguably, it's like slightly... I'm not even gonna say it's slightly better than Shorekeepers. It looks cool, like how Shorekeeper's signature does, but like, bro, it's 20% crit damage. Theoretically less than 1 substat, but you do want crit damage on every single substat, so I guess it's like having 6 crit damage substats instead of 5. But like, still, it's like, is this worth pulling an entire fucking signature for? Probably not. Like, if you need this to clear, then the rest of your builds are probably shit in the first place. And an R5 Discord, ladies and gentlemen, it gives you more Concerto. And there are literally rotations you can't do with Mornye Sig that you can do with an R5 Discord. Yeah, it's just, you should be just using this instead. I guess the buffs on it aren't terrible. So I'll put like these 3 up at the front. I'll put these 3 up at the front. The ones that like buff the team, but their buffs are so small and so unnecessary that they should never really be prioritized under any real circumstance. And now we have Aemeath's signature. Strong, but can just use the standard weapon. Aemeath is one of those units where her signature looks like it's baller. Whoa, ignore 32% defense and 10% fusion resistance? That's actually not that much. You would be surprised at how little actual damage you get using this over EOG. I'm just going to be entirely honest with you, ladies and gentlemen. Her String Master is, or like her weapon is honestly just kind of not that good if I'm frankly going to be honest. You should skip pulling her weapon and instead pull her teammates. And you will get so much more value out of the resources that you're spending. Aemeath casts a bunch of resident skills all the fucking time, so you max out the attack bonus, and her teammates are way more necessary to her performance than her signature. She's one of the least sig-reliant units in existence. It looks cool, though, so you might want to pull just based off of that. But like I said before, not necessary at all. Now, we got Luuk's. Same exact deal, except probably this one's gonna go, this one would probably go like here. This one's going all the way at the bottom. Luuk's signature is one of the most unnecessary things in the game for one main reason. What this does is it gives you basic attack and spectral damage bonus, right? And a little bit of defense ignore. Guess what this thing does? Targets under Toon Straight Interfered, attacking them grants 6% basic attack damage up to 4 times. So this gives 24% basic attack damage bonus. Luuk's a basic attack character that applies Toon Straight Interference. So it's like, you really only get his sig if you really like the unit, because the standard option is so good. However, Luuk is also a really strong character, and his sig is also really good on him. So we can't really be in a spot where it's an only mains, even though some people might want to put it there, because Luuk is a really good unit. The end result is that, yes, he's got a fantastic, ridiculously good free-to-play option, but his sig is also really fucking strong at the same time. So it's like, he's better with his sig for sure, but you don't need it as long as you have at least one of the premium teammates for him. Him with the Mornye, he definitely gets the job done. You gotta recognize how absolutely insane he is as a free-to-play. And now, we got the final weapon over here, and that is going to be Sigrika and the Soul Sword Ciphers. Increase attack by 12%. Casting intro skill or echo skill grants 32% echo skill damage amp. And when you deal echo skill damage, your arrow damage ignores. This thing seems like it's absolutely, like, insanely, stupidly broken on Sigrika, but you realize that 32% echo skill damage amp isn't that good when her partner is Qiuyuan, and you kind of need to have Qiuyuan for her to function. Because this is the thing, guys. Qiuyuan gives 50% echo skill damage amp. And so going from 0 to 50, that's a lot. But going from 50 to 82 is not that much. And then this defense ignore is a little bit middling. You'd rather have Qiuyuan than her sig. Because guess what, guys? If you're really in the boat of using a general use case weapon, she can actually just use Pulsation Bracer 2 based off the stat stick value alone. Or use Zhang Liao's weapon, or God forbid use Tragic Comedy, or even Zani's signature 2. There's pretty much a use case on Sigrika without Soul Sword Ciphers, and as long as she has Qiuyuan on her team, which is a given because she doesn't work without Qiuyuan, her sig is really, really, really unnecessary. And so the end result is, guys, it's just like, well, what do you want me to say? It's strong, but you can just use the standard weapon. And that's kind of just what has happened on this roster, ladies and gentlemen. This is the result of all of these standard weapons being put into the game. And you can see over here, we kind of only have 2 units on the roster that are like mandatory signature reliance needed. Brant and Carlotta. And then everybody else, right? They've got options. And that's kind of nuts when you think about it. And that's just because the standard weapons over here, a combination of the new ones, specifically these 2, and EOG, are so strong. The top picks are obviously going to be EOG. We all know that one. We've already covered it. Followed by probably Phasing Homogenizer, into Static Mist, into Pulsation Bracer, into this one. That's the Broadblade one that gives liberation damage. Dealing damage to targets under Toon Straight Interfere grants 24% liberation damage bonus. There's no actual user of this at the moment, but it's still a solid stat stick, as you can see. And the rest are kind of just pretty dog shit. I would say Cosmic Ripples is probably the closest second one, because it actually does have use cases on some DPS characters. And then I guess this one, because I guess Lupa can sort of use it, and Chisa. And then these 2, Laser Shear and whatever the fuck this Astrolabe is, they're dog water. They're fucking dog shit, bro. Bro, like, these 2 are, like, arguably worse than any of the existing standard ones that we've had. The Boson Astrolabe and this Laser Shear piece of shit, they have to be made for, like, new characters or kits that aren't in the game. What the fuck is this? What the fuck is that? Resident Skill Damage Bonus? Who uses this? Is this for Hiyuki? Does she scale with ER, bro? And then this, equally as shit. that's where the rest of the standard weapons are going to go. Naturally, I would say you can't really go wrong with like these first 5 over here. You're going to notice that almost every damage or every weapon type is covered except for rectifiers in this circumstance. So that's another reason for why String Master is going to be considered, I think, one of the only must pulls in the game. It's because of this, ladies and gentlemen. String Master fills in the role of a standard rectifier that can actually be used on most characters. We don't have one of those rectifiers in the game. And so the end result is that like a huge part of String Master's value simply comes from the fact that the standard rectifiers are so specific or so bad in the first place. And everything else, we split it out into these categories. And the addition of so many new standard weapons, well, it's changed up the tier list a lot. Another tier should be called You Have This. Okay, you know what? Yeah, I should definitely make, you know, we should just put a weapon, we should just put every weapon in its own tier. Yeah, you know, we should just make a new category for every single weapon in the game. That's totally a good idea. Yeah, it's a good use of resources over here. That's going to be it for this list, ladies and gentlemen. And as you can see, the standard weapons in Wuthering Waves are incredibly strong. And the end result is that a lot of previous characters who felt like they needed their signatures to get a good level of performance, they've gotten a lot more options to use, especially those characters whose weapons focus more on team buffing, or the newer releases who function just fine with the standard lineups. And I would dare say there's only really 2 Giga signature reliant units in the game where they can't really use any other option. And that's just going to be Brant and Carlotta. And you can see over here, right? It's just a lot of other characters. They have a lot of flexibility, or there are just some weapons that, based off a character's lack of viability, you just shouldn't really even think about pulling them in the first place. And that's really where the only mains and then the awful value category are going to come from. Either the character is outdated and not really worth investing in, so you shouldn't really get the weapon in the first place, or the character's just genuinely fucking shit. And that's where that stuff is going to be as well. I think we clarified every single thing. We've added some new categories as well. Definitely let me know what you all thought about this one. And peace out.